a very good evening to everyone, and bonjour to Rupert. How are you, Rupert?
Bonjour, Peter.
Well, Rupert, firstly, before we get into the nitty-gritty, I think I've got to congratulate you on behalf of everyone at the Cruising Yacht Club and probably everyone sailing in Australia on your wonderful performance in the Normandy Channel Race, which concluded a couple of weeks ago to an overall 6th position in a fleet that really had a group of stellar shorthanded European sailors. I think it was a magnificent achievement. So firstly, congratulations, and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the race and the boat, but where does one find you at the moment?
Well, no, thanks for the lovely compliments. The result took us by surprise, I've got to say. But right now we're in a place called Caen, which is on the northern coast of France. It's the capital of the Normandy region. So right. It's a lovely little town fed by a river, and they built, I don't know how long ago, they built a lock down at the opening of the river into the English Channel. So the town's got this fantastic system of canals and rivers within it. And to get up here, it's about 5 miles upstream. So you enter from there's like a holding port out on the coast, and you have to wait. You enter the lock, lifts you up, and then you chuff up to the town under motor. So beautiful part of the world.
Yeah, it sounds lovely. Okay, Rupert, let's talk about your boat, a Class 40. How did it all evolve? Where was it built, and how did you get to Europe? I know you've had a few trials and tribulations, but you obviously made it. So let's go right back to the beginning of this Class 40.
Sure. Well, the beginning was in 2016. I was over in France and I saw a Class 40 tied up at the dock at Port La Forêt, and I thought, wow, cool little boat. And so I followed them. They get a lot of coverage on the sail in the Seahorse magazine. So I followed them for a couple of years, and I thought, okay, I might have a crack at that. So in 2019, I came across and met up with one of the good naval architects over here that designed the previous winner of the in the Class 40s of the Route du Rhum. So I commissioned a design out of that, and we ended up building the hull at Innovation Composites down in Eora. So we've got the hull there. We had the keel, the rudders built here in France, and then we brought them out to Oz. And as everybody knows, we sort of sailed the boat for 5 or 6 months in Sydney first, and then shipped it over here.
Now, the class 40, it's a 40-footer, and it's built, designed to a box rule. That's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a box rule. It just sets out the basic parameters of the obvious things you need: weight, draft, sail area, beam, length, and there's also a riding moment, minimum and maximum, or tip weight. When they incline the boat at 90 degrees, there's a minimum and a maximum value at the masthead you have to comply with. And then the other main factor of the box rule is that there's cost limitations in it as well, which kind of explains why the class is so popular. You can't have carbon in the hull, and carbon's only allowed in the rig and the bowsprit. Things like deck spreaders, rotating masts, canting keels aren't allowed within the class rules. So the box rule plus the cost, what they call cost limitation rules, make the boat relatively affordable, and which explains its huge popularity. Like my boat's less than a year old, hull number 169, and they're already about to launch hull number 189. So yeah, it's a good recipe and very popular.
And am I right in saying there's also a limit on the cost of autopilots? Is that correct?
There's a list. Yeah, there is a limit on the value or the retail price of the heading sensor or the compass. There's no limit on total instrumentation cost, but on the heading sensor there is. So, for example, you can't have a fiber optic gyro compass.
Right. Okay, well, the boat was built, Eora, and you started out in the last Rolex Sydney Hobart race. It didn't quite go to plan.
Yeah, right. So this race we did over a week ago now was the first race we actually finished. Third race we started, first to finish. And yeah, we'd had a few problems with the rig back in Sydney, and we seem to have ironed them out now. And yeah, that was my goal for this race here, just to finish. I thought, gosh, I've got to get 1 out of 3. So I had no ambition in terms of being competitive or not, but just to finish a 1,000-mile race was going to be like a step forward for this program.
We'll get to that in detail in a moment, but I then want to take you after the Hobart race. The boat came back to Sydney. You sorted a few issues out and then was plonked on a ship and off to Europe. That didn't go quite as smoothly as you'd hoped, had it? The arrival of the boat was all a bit late. And
so shipping at the moment globally is a big problem. There just seems to be a lack of capacity or an over, and combined with rising costs in production from the big export countries, I guess. So shipping is difficult to get hold of, especially down in Australia, and expensive and unreliable. So we thought we weren't going to load till February, March, but all of a sudden a window came up on a ship in January. So we rushed that, got the boat on a ship inside a roll-on, roll-off ship, dismantled and shrink-wrapped. So the ship got delayed. We had to, in order to make the race we've just done in time, we had to change the discharge port from Southampton, which would have been quite convenient, up to Newcastle in the north of England. So then we had to truck the boat down 9 hours. And it was quite a show, but got it done, no damage to the boat. And then once we had everything in Hamble, I had a little network set up there of friends and other people in the industry. So we managed to get the boat assembled and get it going. We sailed only twice before the race.
So you put the boat together at the Hamble and then you sailed it across to France. And let's talk about your crew, because this first race you did with the Normandy Channel Race was a two-handed race. So yes. Your crew, how did that all come about?
Well, I was really lucky to be able to team up with Jack Boutel. He's an Australian guy who moved to England with his parents when he was, I think, 18 or 19. And then his parents and his sister live back in Australia now, but he stayed on because, in love with his yachting. And he lives in France now, near Lorient. He's married and has a young child. And I just, through actually Rob Greenhalgh introduced us on the internet introduction, and then he came across to Hamble and we got along really well. And it was for me, it was important to try and sail. If I was going to sail double hand with somebody I didn't know well, to at least try and team up with an Australian or an Englishman that the communication can flow freely. So I was really lucky that Jack was available, because he's a pretty in-demand pro sailor over here now. And he was on the Dongfeng team that won the most recent Volvo Around the World race. And we got along like a house on fire. And he sort of dragged me around the course for 1,000 miles. And I tried not to let him down too often.
And Rupert, how rigorous was the safety protocols before the race, and the tipping down of the boat and getting all the stability right? I assume it was fairly rigorous.
Yeah, like the pull down test of the boat and the weighing of the boat, that's all to ensure you comply with the class rules. So that was done. We did that early on in Hamble. Well, we did that just before we came to France in Hamble. That's a class thing. But then like we do for the Hobart race, the event has its own safety officers to each event, and they come aboard and just go through all your safety items quite thoroughly, same as what we do with our pre-Hobart inspections. Not really dissimilar at all. They're probably a little bit more strict here on how you have things stowed in the boat. For example, you have to have 9 litres of emergency water, and that has to be, that's the measurer comes on, or the safety inspector comes on board and actually puts little wires and swages on board, and your anchor has to be swaged in place just to prove that you have them, and also to prevent you from stacking them inside the boat during the race. But all in all, it's pretty similar to what we have. And
what about crew qualifications?
I think for the race we just did, I don't think there were any. I know for the Route du Rhum at the end of the year, there's quite a long qualifying passage, which is a single-hand race. But for this one, I think as long as you had things like sea safety survival course done, they weren't too concerned about. In fact, I don't remember filling anything out about that. So
right.
Yeah, I guess different approach.
Okay, so we got to the race start, and you've only sailed the boat a couple of times. It must have been rather daunting. I mean, anyone that's experienced the shorthanded sailing or sailing in France, you could easily be overwhelmed by the quality of boat and sailors there. But you hit the starting line, what, 30 odd boats in this first race? Was that about right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty exciting sailing. You know, it's basically long offshore racing and effectively a one design fleet. You know, it's exciting. Yeah, when you overtake a boat, you know you've picked up a place, and when you lose some boats, you know you've lost a place. So that's a really nice aspect of it, and yeah, it's intense competition. The 30 boats, they on the double-handed events here, they do a little inshore, not close to shore course, which is a small windward leeward. So we had a bit on because we hadn't really practiced many of the manoeuvres, but we managed to get quite a good start on the pin, and we're in the top bunch for most of that race. And then after you do the short windward leeward race, you just punch off across the channel heading for the Isle of Wight.
Yeah. Well, I think a few of us, well, I know I did, and I know a few of my friends did watch the start. We could watch the start, and although it was in French, we could see you, and we knew you were sort of well positioned or in the top bunch, as you said. But then once you did the little windward leeward, you went over to the Isle of Wight, and then you had to leave the Isle of, or the Wight to port, go through the Solent, and then pop out the other side.
Yeah.
How was that? Did you get through the Solent all right?
Oh, look, I haven't sailed in this part of the world before, so I feel like I was quite disoriented through a lot of the race. But I guess because it's a double-handed race, they allow a course that's pretty intricate from a navigational perspective. So like sailing down through the Solent, I hadn't done it before, and we got there just on nightfall, and it was light, and we were just close jibing in along the well, I guess it's the shore of the Isle of Wight to keep out of the tide, and it was we had the most sort of navigational stress or requirement of any ocean race I've done. And yeah, so that was an exciting aspect of it, and dealing with the tidal flows at various pinch points around the course.
Good fun, isn't it? It's good fun.
As everyone knows, the tide over here is a lot stronger, but there's one. If you look at the tracker, there's some places we did actually towards the end of the race, we did pirouettes because we were trying to punch through tides. It was 6 knots in some places, and I'd seen videos of it, but and actually sailing in a set of rapids, it's quite amazing.
Yeah, but just talking about the navigation, I mean, did you share the navigation, or did Jack do it? You do it, or how did you work through that?
Jack did most of the navigation on this race because he's sailed a lot of events, a lot of miles in this part of the world. He's done 4 Solitaire de Figaro races, which generally run their stages in this part of the world. And yeah, so he was the principal navigator for sure. And because he's much more familiar with the area, and also we were using some different types of navigation software that is more suited to the tides and currents over here. So
yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to ask you, and it obviously was in the sailing instructions. I looked at the original course, and you went round the Isle of Wight to port, then down to the western approaches, round Land's End, out to the Tusker Rock at the eastern island. Then you went in Ireland, at the eastern end of Ireland, and then you were from there to go down to Fastnet Rock. But the course changed during the race. Is that right, or was that promulgated before the race?
You're right. The course did change, and they took out from Tusker Rock, like you say, which is on the eastern tip of Ireland.
Yeah,
we're meant to go along the Irish coast to Fastnet.
Yes, and
then head back up towards Guernsey.
Yeah.
So the race organisers, we had a very, very heavy downwind run to Tusker in the middle of the night, blowing and bad seaway, and they were ringing us on a satellite phone. They wanted to have a personal contact to change the course. So trying to take a satellite phone call in the middle of the night, and finally the message we couldn't really kept dropping out. So we by the time we came in towards the coast, we managed to get 4G reception and sent an email saying, go around this mark and then sail 220 miles rum line up to a mark off Brest called Port Salle. So that was not really welcome news because it was 220 miles back into a sharp seaway and about 25 knots of breeze. But
so from Land's End, you had a good hard run to Tusker Rock. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. It's one of those nights where just the breeze built, and we went we peeled down from the masthead down to the fractional, and then really sharp seaway. And to be honest, I'm not quite across the sailing angles with this scow-shaped boat. So it ended up getting pretty breezy, where we'd be sailing along for a few minutes and the boat would just get faster and faster, like 22 knots, 23 knots, 24 knots. And all of a sudden you'd end up in a trough you just couldn't get out of. And this scow bow impacts so violently, even downwind, that the boat would just come to a complete standstill and wipe out. So it was a bit of a long early morning, but finally got there. But
you seem to hang in. I mean, you didn't seem to lose many places or any places. Times you seem to be gaining places on the way out to the rock.
Yeah, well, actually, that's the first time I've heard that, because we're having problems with our data coverage. So we're pushing pretty hard. Like I said, wiping out a lot, and then we broke a halyard, and it was a bit of a mess. But anyway, we kept pushing. I guess it's one of the great benefits of sailing with a guy that's done a couple of Volvo races. Like those guys are great to have aboard, because they just force you to push the boat to stay competitive. So anyway, that was the toughest part of the race in terms of sea state and boat management, for sure. And I've got to sort of change the way I sail the boat and heavy downwind now. I think we're going to have to sail the boat a lot higher, just to try and reduce the number of nosedives, or it's like hitting a wall with this big bow.
Yeah, well, it must have been a steep learning curve for you to get thrown into the pack like that, of all these guys that had done it probably a lot more than you had, but to hang in there, I mean, it was pretty good effort.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Very kind of you. I mean, they are a lot of well-established teams, and they've done the course around here a lot. I think that was a big part of it for me, feeling disoriented, just going straight into a new team and a new course, a new geography. Had a bit on, but yeah.
So once you got around Tusker Rock, it was a long beat then, in still pretty vigorous conditions. Because I had a look at the time when they changed the course around the fasted area. It was pretty breezy. I think it was 30 knots plus. So that obviously was the factor in changing the course. But you still had a good beat back towards Guernsey, didn't you? Or
we did, actually. I felt much more at home in terms of a guy that's done a lot of sailing on the east coast of Australia, beating upwind into a big seaway. I felt, whereas downwind, in a new style of boat, I felt a little bit lost. But upwind, I thought, okay, I can deal with this. And yeah, like the reason they skipped Fastnet apparently is because they thought they'd have 45 knots by the time we sort of went along the coast. Would have been like a long basic port tack. So that's why I think they changed the course. But we did quite well in the long beat. It took, I don't know how long it took, 36 hours or something. But yeah, we managed to pick off a few boats, and we're right up near the front. But then we had a navigational issue, a strategic issue at the very top near France, and lost a few.
And how did the boat handle upwind? What sails did you end up at the strongest breeze?
I think when we ran around the mark, we probably had a reef in, and then on the smaller jib, which is an inner jib on a inner stay, which we call a J2. So yeah, we probably went along like that. The boats are quite stiff, so you can have a relatively big sail plan even in quite strong breeze and bad sea. But and you don't sail that high. We're probably sailing along at 49 true, 48 true, not as high as like a proper windward leeward boat. So and plus the water ballast helps. So yeah,
that big the hull shape. Big
Sorry?
The hull shape being big and flat. There a lot of banging and crashing.
Yeah, and an atrocious amount, to be honest. Like, this boat has the roughest ride upwind of anything I've ever sailed, and but you, like everything, you get used to it. So yeah. And
notwithstanding that you're sailing, say, about 49 to 50 degrees to the what speed would you be doing upwind?
Fast, like high nines.
High nines.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Right. Yeah, like really fast. I mean, if the numbers on these class 40s are phenomenal. If you just look at the speeder, you forget you're on a 40-footer. The boat is quick.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's exciting to sail. And because of the twin rudders, you always pull the windward rudder up. The leeward rudder, the steering's fine. You never, it's quite balanced. Yeah.
And what were your watch systems? I mean, were you regulated there, or was it just when you got tired you went down, or how did you work?
No, we didn't have a watch system, to be honest. We did not get a lot of sleep. So we were lucky that we built a good rapport very quickly, and similar to what I'm used to with sailing with Greg, we just sort of knew when the other person had to have a sleep, and we just did it. But I don't think we set any records for pillow time. Like, it was, the sleeps were few and far between, put it that way.
Well, as you approached Guernsey, the conditions moderated, or appeared to me to moderate, and then you ran into the massive tidal systems around the Channel Islands and on the beat back to the finish. That must have been frustrating for all, not just you. I mean, everyone seemed to slow right down, and looked at some of the VMGs. They were in minus figures at times.
Yeah, it did get very light towards the end of the race. Coming into the end of that long top beat, it lightened off, and I learned a lot from that, because we were in second by then, and I thought, okay, the wind was going right. I thought we're going to tack early and lift to the mark, but then the wind got extremely light, and the tide switched. Tide started running from west to east and swept us way down below the mark, where the guys that are more experienced with sailing in these conditions that were behind us, they just banged the corner all the way. They went all the way to the right as far as they could, just to ensure that no matter what happened with the breeze, they could make the mark. And in the end, they just went around the outside and we got stuck. So yeah, it did get light, and I learned a lot from that. And then coming through Guernsey, we were unfortunate that we had a loss. The tide switched against us, and we ended up doing a massive circle. Anyway.
Did you anchor at all?
Fun. Good fun.
Did you anchor at all?
Well, actually, yeah, we were going through a place past a little island called Alderney, which is just, what is it? I get disoriented around here. It's north of Guernsey. We're in that area that I described before as like rapids. I said, okay, I reckon we can anchor here, because we started going backwards. We've been punching into these rapids for about 3 hours under an A2 and a full main, in about 6 knots of breeze, doing about half a knot over the ground. And then the tide speed built, so I thought, okay, let's anchor. It was 27 meters deep. Anyway, we got the anchor under the bottom, but then we couldn't hold it. We lost the whole thing overboard. So it was a bit, including a new jib sheet, which was quite annoying. But anyway.
Well, I think that the Alderney race is known as one of the areas in the world with the greatest tidal flow. So you're right in it, that's for sure.
It's just a bit, we ended up being stuck in some sort of tidal vortex, spinning circles. So we weren't actually going backwards, which was good. But then it's just like you're just waiting in a car park. Then all of a sudden, okay, tide's changed, let's go. And off you go.
Yeah. But it looked as though all the leading group that you were in were all suffering from the same sort of consequences.
Well, the leading group, like I think we're in 5th place, but dropped back to 5th. The leading 3 or 4 got through Alderney in much better shape than us, and that's how they got their lead in the end. So we got stuck, and then the guy behind us sort of caught up to us and compressed. So.
Yeah, well, to finish 6th, as I said earlier, in that company was a marvellous performance. And was there much damage to the boat at all, or any changes you had to make?
A little bit. That's why I'm still here in Caen. We broke the back end of the boom. We ripped out a jib turning block. What else? We had quite a few leaks in the ballast tanks. So, you know, that's why I'm here in Caen. We're just doing a little refit to sort out all those problems. Nothing major, things you can still keep sailing with, obviously, but things that I want to have perfect before I head off. Right. So I should be out of here in the next couple of days. They had a 4-day sort of public holiday here last week, which didn't help.
Right. Well, the next race is another long race. You start in Cherbourg and then across the Channel again. They like sending you to the Isle of Wight. You've got to go to the Shambles market, the Isle of Wight, then out to Fastnet, then back down to a virtual mark, I think, then back to La Trinité. So that's another long race. Is that double-handed or single-handed?
That's single-handed. The race, the first race we did is the only double-handed race of the year. This year being a Route du Rhum year, which is every 4 years, spaced evenly between the Vendée Globes. The main events are single-handed. So yeah, that's the Drheam Cup.
Yeah.
The next event coming up in the middle of July.
Yes.
Which is single-handed, and the course navigationally is simpler than the one we just did, just because for safety being single-handed. So like you say, we don't have to go through the Solent, which is a great relief. We just got to go around one of the marks there at the Shambles and then out to Fastnet, and then back down, like you say, around Finistère into La Trinité. So navigationally, it's a fair bit simpler with fewer landfalls than the double-handed race.
And This Drheam Cup caters for a lot of the classes, doesn't it? For the short-handed classes, not just the class 40s that are doing it. There's the mockers and everything. Everyone's rolled into it, aren't they? But they do different courses.
It's principally a single-handed event. So I think there's the class 40s single-handed, there's the mockers single-handed, and I think they've got a Figaro, the Veneto Figaro 3 division single-handed.
Right.
And then I think amongst that, there's just a straight IRC division, which I'm not sure, but I think is crewed.
Right. So that's a thousand miles for you. And Rupert, with the more specifically, I guess, when you're single-handed, what sort of an alarm do you have, like for if boats are getting near you? Is that regular come off AIS, or how? I assume.
Yeah, principally it's an AIS alarm system.
Yeah.
So we put a thing called a Vespa Cortex on the boat, which just manages the AIS alarm system pretty well. And you can set guards like a radar. It's AIS. You can set guard zones and closest point of approaches and time to closest point of approach. Those sorts of parameters you can set up, and it will alarm with an increasing volume if any of those parameters are broken.
Yeah.
Plus, we also in the class 40 and all these single-handed classes, it's a rule you have to have a radar. So you run your radar and you put your traditional kind of guard zones on for the radar while you're asleep as well. It's like a second layer of defense. And then we've got a system installed which is connected to the instrumentation. So you can set alarm parameters on that. So for example, if you get a wind shift beyond a certain number of degrees, or you get a change in wind speed beyond the numbers, those sorts of things you can set up for an alarm as well. So that's the risk I found single-handed. You can be sailing along nicely, but then you get up and you realize the wind's changed 20 degrees and you've gone the wrong way, things like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, the Drheam Cup, which starts, I think, July 15th, how many boats are you expecting in your division, the class 40?
I think there'll be about 40, between 30 and 40. Yeah, which should be a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And I think the mockers probably got about 15, 20, I'm not sure.
And what sort of training are you doing between then and now? Or now?
Well, okay, so I think they're aiming to get the boat out of this yard in a couple of days. And then I'm just going to do some single-handed coastal hopping around to Lorient, which is where we're going to be based for the summer. So just to make sure that everything's okay with the boat. And then depending on how that goes, then we've got some long single-handed offshore training to do in the second half of June. So,
and will you do that in company with other boats?
Possibly. I mean, once I get back down to Lorient, there's a lot of class 40s in that part of the world. So yeah, they'll be doing that. So where possible, yeah. But I think primarily I'm not so concerned with doing that in company. I'm more concerned with just becoming more used to living on the boat offshore, and just getting comfortable with that, rather than the racing, like being flat out racing all the time. Yeah.
Well, Lorient's a real hub for the sailing, the short-handed sailing, isn't it, in France?
Oh, it's phenomenal. You go down there and they've got the Gitana old team tied up, the IDEC old team tied up, the latest IMOCAs. It's a great scene if you're into that.
It's extraordinary.
It's exciting. The capital investment or the sponsorship investment in the offshore racing in France it's mind-blowing. It's a real. It's where all the. Sorry.
No, go. Sorry.
I was just going to say the benefit that comes out of that to the whole sailing community is that the technology, like some of these technologies I've just been describing, they're born and bred in Lorient, and they come out of that necessity that these guys have when they're sailing IMOCAs, falling IMOCAs or Team 100s around the world by themselves. So that really creates a demand for innovation. It's exciting to see what sort of software and devices they've got over here.
Yeah. Well, then you've got a fair break as far as racing goes, because then the jewel in the crown, I guess, for a lot of single-handed sailing is Route du Rhum, which 3,600 miles from St. Malo to Guadeloupe. It starts on the 6th of November.
Right.
So you've got a big gap then. Are you coming home? You're staying over there, or more training?
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to getting home for a bit and catching up with friends and family. That'll be nice. And then But the focus is on the race because it only comes around once every 4 years.
Yeah.
So I think I'll be back here to do a fair bit of training before it starts to get quite cold, as you know, in October. So try and get some sailing done quite late, I think, because you end up sailing a lot in the dark. Like the days are very short.
Sure.
It gets light about 9 and gets dark about 4. So I want to try and do some training in October when it's cold and dark, basically.
Yeah, yeah. Does Jack still involved with the project at all now that you're single-handed? Does he sort of come aboard as a
as a friend, but not on a professional basis? I mean, Jack's just been appointed skipper of Volvo 65 for the I think it's called the Ocean Race. It's on.
Yes, it is.
Next year.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's just been given a skipper role in one of those boats. So we're keeping in touch as friends and fellow Australians sailing in France. But and he's a very experienced guy. He doesn't mind helping out.
Fantastic. Well, getting back to the Route du Rhum, I mean, it's an iconic race, and as you said, it's first held in 1978. And if you're an aficionado of that style of racing, which I am, I think you can still remember that amazing finish in the first race when that little 39-foot trimaran passed the big maxi critter to the finish and won by 96 seconds. Michael Birch. It was an amazing finish, and the history of that race. I mean, since anyone in shorthanded sailing has done that race, and it's an amazing event. So I guess, and again, in that first race, there was no classes. It was just all in, there was maxis racing against little boats and trimarans and catamarans, but now there's classes for it. So it'll be a big fleet as well, I guess, Rupert.
Huge fleet. Like there's a level of national excitement apparently around this race. It's like, similar to the atmosphere we have on Boxing Day for the Sydney Hobart race. It's like that, but it's the French version. It's once every 4 years though, so there's a lot of pent-up enthusiasm for the event itself. Apparently St Malo, which is where the race starts, gets over 2 million visitors over the course of the race village week. So it's pretty exciting. Looking forward to being a part of that. Yeah. In the class 40, there are going to be, I think it's 55 guys sailing class 40s in my division. So that's
you better be on your game. You better be on your game.
Well, I'm here trying to get better. I've got a lot to learn.
Is there a traditional route in the Route du Rhum as such? I mean, everything's dependent on the weather, but do you go north and then dive south, or is
I think because there's that Azores high out in the Atlantic, I think generally speaking, people try and get to the tip of France, turn left, get down towards Portugal, and then sail around the bottom of the high pressure system and get into the trades, and then just straight line it as much as possible down towards the Caribbean. Yeah. So I think, you hear talk of guys having great success by going above the high and then battling, going upwind for a week and then just getting launched with a tight reach around the top of the high. But I guess, I don't know, I haven't done a lot of research into it yet, but depending on the location of the high will determine which way to go. And then, of course, when you're sailing against 55 boats in the same class, you've got your tactical and strategic considerations. Sure. You separate, you might come out a hero, or you might come last. So that's about all I know of it so far. Yeah.
Well, you've got a few months to prepare for that. Now, we've got one email that came in recently, and I want you to work out who sent it. You ready?
Sure.
I just thought you might like to know that Rupert started his sailing career when I was 8 months pregnant with him. David and I sailed our first new boat, an Endeavour 24, Sweet Chariot 1, up from Botany Bay after launching it at Sylvania. He couldn't wait to get his hands on the tiller. He has an adventurous spirit and he gives us sleepless nights. Who do you think that's from?
Probably my most devoted fan.
Well, I would say so. Your lovely mother, Jill. She said a thing in the other day, so that's nice. I'm sure.
Oh, that's very kind of you.
Yeah, it's very.
Thanks.
Very
nice
nice
to hear that. Nice to hear that. Yeah, I've been lucky. I've had a nice long association with boats. I do love it. It's I don't know. Sailing is something I don't think I'll ever get sick of. Yeah. I will get sick of working on boats, though. I've got to tell you that much.
So let's go to the end of the Route du Rhum. What's the plan then, or haven't you looked that far ahead?
Haven't really looked that far ahead. I mean, I think the Class 40 Association basically charter a ship, and so there'll be deck cargo. We're going to send our cradles down there, and then everyone will basically share the cost of coming back to France as deck cargo. So the boat will, I think, come back to France, and then I personally, I've been deciding whether I'm going to have the energy or not to come back down to Sydney and do the Hobart race. Hopefully, I will have the energy.
Right. Well, we all hope you do. Rupert, isn't there a Class 40 race on at the moment? Did I read somewhere that there's a rather large Class 40 race?
Oh, I hope not.
No,
nothing. There's nothing on the major part of the calendar.
Right.
But
okay.
there's a lot of them around. Like as I said, there's 180 been launched in the 13-year life of the class. So they do run a sort of B-grade events that, and some fully crewed in the class as well. So yeah, it's possible there's stuff on all the time, but not necessarily that sort of hardcore single and double-handed stuff.
Yeah. And are there any sister ships to your boat? Exact sister ships?
Oh, tell you what, there's quite a few, and I've learned a little bit about artistic licensing because we commissioned this design, like I said, back in 2019, and paid for all the CFD work that went with it. And then, all credit to them. The Naval Architects seems to have sold at least another 7 or 8 of the same design. So, yeah.
So it's a French naval architect?
Yep. It's they're really good. It's Mark Lombard Design Group, and they're pretty well renowned in mockers and this class and multi-hulls. So, and yeah, it was a really good experience working with them. And the boat, this design seems to be building popularity, and some of the other really good sailors have from over here have commissioned a boat to the same design.
Right.
Which is encouraging, because at the beginning I thought, gosh, I might be out on my own here.
Yeah. Well, the first race, the Normandy Channel Race, obviously proved that you've got the boat and the technology to mix it with them. So that must be a real bonus for you to know that you're on the pace, as they say.
Oh, it's a big relief actually, because exactly. To know that we can be on the pace some of the time, it was a huge relief. And then there are various points to sail where we were definitely off the pace, but I think that's just the boat's very sensitive to how much ballast you have in, where you're allowed to stack in this class. So the positioning of the center of gravity of your sail stack and gear stack on deck or in the boat is critical, I'm finding, and it's not always what you'd expect. So yeah, so far so good. I'm happy with the design. Any success or failure is going to be my fault for sure.
Right. Rupert, would it be possible, I don't know whether it is possible, to just have a look? You're obviously sitting in the cockpit of your boat now, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. So would it be enough light to go down below and have a look, or is there anything to see?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, okay, I can do that.
It might be nice
I'm in the cockpit, so what I might do is, if I can manage it, I'll jump up on deck, do a quick backwards and forwards, and then down below. Or
yeah, that'd be terrific. Absolutely.
How's that? You got me back?
Yeah, got you. Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Maybe I'll turn the computer around. Just tell me, how's that?
Yeah, that's good. We can see the stern of the boat. Yeah.
You can see here we're in a shipyard called V1D, which is a great little shipyard. The owner here is very helpful. I've got a great setup here. How's that angle? Can you see?
Yeah, we're looking forward now. We can go looking forward.
As you'd expect to see in France, you got about 100 little kids learning how to sail.
Yeah, we'll see that.
In the middle of a landlocked city. It just, that's just an indication of how passionate they are about their sailing over here.
Yeah.
Anyway, so how's that angle?
Yeah, you're moving forward. You're getting right down.
You can see here we've just put in we just put this in a couple of days ago, a new forestay with furling. Have I got the right angle there?
Yeah, we can see the furler and the forestay.
Yeah, so that's new. Up till now we've had a Hank-on jib, but I decided for the single-handed, I'm going to go to furling. It's not great aerodynamically, but it's just quite dangerous trying to get a jib down and up here when it's rough. The boat slams so hard.
But
Anyway,
Rupert,
as you can see, the boom is gone, the boom's split, and that's getting fixed at the moment.
but just getting back to the furling jib, so you've got a jib on the forestay and a jib on the inner forestay, have you, on a roll of?
Yeah, we've got 3 jibs. Well, actually 4, because we can put one on the masthead halyard and out to the end of the bowsprit.
Right. Okay.
You can see here, we got, how's that angle? You can see
Yeah,
here we
that's
got
good.
a
That's good.
got a furler and attack line here. That's for the inner, like what we call the J2, the first inner stay.
Yep.
We've got the mainstay, and then coming back a little bit further, we got a second. It's got the sun cover on it, but got a like another inner stay.
Yep.
Which you can put the storm jib on, or just a staysail with a little bit more separation from the jib. So under the class rules in class 40, you're only allowed to sail with 8 sails on board, and that includes a trysail. So we all get out of the trysail by having a deep reef, like a 4th reef in the mainsail.
Yeah.
But 8 sails is quite limiting. Keeps the cost down, which is another reason why this class is so popular.
Yeah.
But you have to be quite careful in each sail choice, otherwise you end up with some gaps.
Yeah.
You don't want them. As that, can you see that? This
see the stern. See the stern. Yep. 2 rudders. Yep.
Hub. Yeah. So you can see with satellite, we're running. This is the Thales Vessel Link, the Certus 700 system. What's called Vessel Link 700, something like that. This provides a pretty high data speed compared to the more sort of domey ones we're more familiar with.
Yep.
And this is the same as what they use in the Vendée Globe. And this level of data transmissions allows you to have that always-on connectivity, which is what we're struggling with regards to radios and satellite and all that sort of stuff. But this is basically the lowest level you can have, which provides always-on connectivity. Okay, so how's that, Shippo? Can you see where I'm going?
Yeah, we can. You're going downstairs now, yeah?
Yeah, it's a real mess. Sorry, because we're sort of got guys working on the boat. Yeah. Guys working on the boat at the moment, but you can see it's a life of luxury down here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, I didn't expect to have to give the guide to it. It's a disgraceful mess.
No, don't be silly.
This is the galley. So we got the I don't know if you can see that. We got the gimbal jet boil.
Yeah.
And basically, this is all the storage we have in the galley. You can put your food when it's rehydrating into this gimbal section here, and then so we've got a receptacle here where the water maker. Every time we run the engine, we make water. So that fills up, and then we eat and drink based on the water that ends up in that. So I don't know if it's too dark down there.
No, that's good.
But you can see we've got work in progress here.
Yeah.
These are the inspection ports that we're having fitted, so hopefully we won't be filling up with water every time we have the tanks full anymore. And then basically we've got a bunch of stacking bags. So we just every time you pack or jibe, you got to get everything across. It's the hardest part of sailing the boat.
A lot of the shorthanders, Rupert, I've noticed use sort of like a bean bag to sleep in on. Do you do that?
Yeah. I think that's a very French philosophy, which I don't subscribe to yet. I mean, they're real, really conscious of weight over here. And you see, I've got this, as an Australian, we're more used to like a gimbaled pipe cot.
Yeah, sure.
But I don't know. It's lighter to have the beanbag, and to be honest, I think it could be good because getting thrown, trying to sleep when it's rough in the bunk, you just sort of slide backwards and forwards too much. It's hard to.
Yes.
So I think with the beanbag, it might sort of wedge you in a bit more, so you actually do sleep. It's sort of counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Anyway, here we go. The famous weed stick. There's a lot of weed up here, as you know, Shippo. So we're forever that stick down the leeward rudder and trying to get weed off it.
Yeah.
Which is an art form in its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so here are all the sails. Basically it.
It looks as luxurious as we thought it would, Rupert. That looks fantastic.
Yeah. Well, it's not a ground that's gone to waste.
No. Yeah. And how do you get the water side to side? Water ballast.
Yeah, so we can. The boat's so wide, so we've got two intakes for the water, which are these skirts. We push them down, and they've got an opening forward. So you've got a force-fed sort of speed effect, and then I don't know if you can see it there. There's a couple of pumps. So we've got one pump each side, so that you can actually pump when you've got quite a bit of heel on to the windward side.
Yeah.
If you tack or jibe and you don't want to change the ballast, then you just open these valves, those blue valves. Can you see those?
Yes, I can. Yes.
Yeah. So you just basically transfer under gravity. It takes about 4 minutes to dump the 750 litres from the windward side to the leeward side. And then the boat's quite on its ear once it's transferred, but anyway, it doesn't seem to worry it. Then you just do your manoeuvre and you're off.
Yeah.
It could be quicker transfer systems, but I don't know. This one seems to work for single-handed races where you're not like short tacking and short driving too often.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for the tour.
Yeah.
Rupert, just a final question, I guess. I mean, you're in contact, I'm sure, with a lot of the two-handed guys here in Australia. Are you anticipating there'll be a good fleet for our forthcoming Rolex Sydney Hobart race in the two-handers?
Oh, yeah, I think there'll be a good fleet for the Gold Coast race.
Yeah.
It's I think the CYCA's initiative in recent times has been fantastic, and it's going to be exciting to see how many boats we get. The more the merrier, but I think there'll be plenty. I mean, it's a really exciting thing to do. So shorthanded, it's a good aspect of the sport, and it's good of the club to embrace it.
Yeah, right. Well, Rupert, thank you very much. I again, on behalf of everyone, congratulations, and we wish you much success. And go safely. I think that's the number one requirement, and that's what your mother would say, I'm sure. So look after yourself. We'll no doubt talk down the track. Your next race is I think the 15th of July. It's a 1,000-mile race, the Drheam Cup.
Yeah, that's the one.
We might touch base after that to wish you or pass on our congratulations. So, Rupert, go well. You've got a lot of fans back here in Australia, hoping you do well. And, we look forward to welcoming you back to Australia when that may well be. But keep going well, and thanks again for your time.
Oh, it's my pleasure, Peter. Thanks to you and to everyone at the CYCA. I'm flying the Burgee proudly over here.